Good morning, dear students. Hope you are all doing well and keeping yourself safe and taking care of yourself. Now, let us start with the topic of today's class. Okay, today's class might extend little more because your signal system sir is not taking now. Only in the afternoon he will take his tutorial class. Okay, so let me just complete this particular topic. Okay. Now, we have seen in the previous class about the first order systems, general first order systems, and we just understood there are two responses totally giving output of a system. One is the steady state response, other one is a transient response. Transient response is the one which will be there when the system started, and after some time it will settles down and it will come down, it will decay. And then the steady state continues and it reaches to the final value and stays back forever. Okay. So for this, I have given an example of the teacher entering to the class. And when the teacher is entering to the class to deliver the lecture, initially there will be a lot of noise because students will be talking on their own, doing their own activities. So there will be a lot of noise. And the noise will slowly decrease it, and finally it becomes zero, absolutely calm. So that means the transient error would be the noise, or the transient response would be the noise in the class which has decayed down to zero. And then the steady state response is the delivery of the lecture content by the teacher, and it would be increasing from a lower volume to slowly to the higher volume. Once it picks up, it will be remaining at the same volume, whatever has been the maximum tone that the teacher can express. Okay, that is a simple example to understand. Now, we have seen the first order system. The typical first order system would be having a format of A by S plus A, or also we can say it as in terms of T, 1 by S plus, 1 by 1 plus T into S, where T is the time constant. Okay. For the first order system, we have seen the time constant is given as 1 by A. We also have seen the system as 2.2 by A, and we have also seen the settling time is 4 by A. So we have seen certain things. Now coming to the second order system. So generally, when we are talking about a second order system, we should know what is the standard format of a second order system. So in this class, we are going to see the standard second order system transfer function. Okay. Then what are the roots of the second order system, and what is the nature of the roots of the second order system for various damping? Okay. Then what is the step response of a second order system? Okay. And then what are the time domain specifications? These are the four points that we are going to discuss today. Okay. Now coming to the standard second order system. Okay. So now let me come to the standard second order system. What is the format of it? Okay. A typical second order system would be appearing like, let me just adjust these things so that you can see the things. Okay. A typical second order system would be having a transfer function C of S by R of S, which is a closed loop transfer function, which is expressed as omega n square by S square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. So one has to know this and one has to remember this structure, which is the standard transfer function for a second order system. Obviously, it is a closed loop transfer function. Okay. And there is a parameter called zeta, right? In this, you could see that there is something called zeta, which is present in the thing. So this zeta is called the damping ratio. Okay. So there is something called zeta, which is there, which is deciding the behavior of the system, which is called the damping ratio. Okay. So what is this damping ratio? Damping ratio is given as ratio of the actual damping to the critical damping. Remember, damping ratio is given as ratio of the actual damping to the critical damping. Okay, that is one thing. Actual to critical, A by C, you remember that. Now, there are various conditions in which the second order system can act. One is when zeta is equal to 0. Okay. So we say that when zeta is equal to 0, the system is called as undamped system. Okay. It is having no damping. Okay. So zeta is equal to 0 is undamped system. That is one case. And then we have the other one, zeta greater than 1. Okay. So what could be the value of zeta? Zeta can have various values according to the second order system. So in one case, when zeta is equal to 0, we say that the system is undamped. When zeta is greater than 1, we say it as overdamped. What if zeta is lying between 0 and 1? Okay. If the system is having zeta value between 0 and 1, we say it as underdamped system. Please make a difference between undamped and underdamped. Undamped system is a 1, no damping, zeta is equal to 0. Underdamped one is a 1 with zeta is between 0 and 1. Fine. When zeta is greater than 1, we say it as overdamped system. Okay. Then finally, when zeta is equal to 1, we say it is critically damped. So when you consider any second order system, one should know what is the standard format of a second order system transfer function, which must be omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. It should be of that format. And it could be in one of the 4 states. What could be those states? It could be having zeta is equal to 0. The system would be undamped system. It could be having zeta greater than 1. And in that case, it is a overdamped system. And it could be having zeta between 0 and 1. It could be underdamped system. And it could be having zeta is equal to 1, which could be a critically damped system. Okay. Zeta is equal to 1 is critically damped. Zeta is equal to 0 is undamped. Zeta greater than 1 is overdamped. And zeta between 0 to 1 is underdamped. These are the 4 conditions. Now, we know that the closed loop transfer function C of S by R of S, okay, for any control system in general, having a G of S in the forward path and H of S in the feedback path could be given as G of S by 1 plus G of S into H of S, correct? Assuming that here, what is that we have assumed here? We have assumed that the feedback is negative. Had the feedback be positive, it would have been a minus sign. Okay, so I need not have to reiterate it again. So we know that a generalized closed loop transfer function having G of S in the forward path and H of S in the feedback path would be of the form GS by 1 plus G of S into H of S. Okay, so now this is a denominator of the closed loop transfer function, right? So this denominator equated to 0 is called the characteristic equation of the system. Okay, so denominator of C of S by R of S equated to 0 is called the characteristic equation of a system. Okay, supposing that if I ask you, what is the characteristic equation of a generalized closed loop transfer function? You know the generalized closed loop transfer function is given as G of S by 1 plus or minus G of S into H of S. And in that case, if I am asking you to give me the characteristic equation, then you can really see that the denominator is 1 plus or minus G of S into H of S. Equated to 0 is the characteristic equation of the system. Okay. But here in this case, I have taken a negative feedback system. And the characteristic equation of this negative feedback system is given as 1 plus G of S into H of S equal to 0. So the point here to be remembered is that the characteristic equation of a closed loop control system is given by equating the denominator to 0. Okay, right? But how do you get your G of S, C of S by R of S of the given system? It should be finally of the form G of S by 1 plus or minus G of S into H of S. Okay, so characteristic equation is nothing but denominator of the transfer function equated to 0. Okay, right? Now coming to the second order system, now I ask you what is the characteristic equation of the generalized second order system? Okay, so I gave you in the first slide the transfer function of a generalized second order system is omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. So this is a numerator related to G of S. This may be the denominator related to 1 plus G of S into H of S, something of that. So I'm asking you to give me the characteristic equation of that. Then straight away, because it is a transfer function, you can equate the denominator to 0. So that's what the basic thing has been given. So the characteristic equation of a second order system is s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square is equal to 0. Okay. So I have given you the two equations here indicating the generalized formula of characteristic equation of a generalized control system. This is the characteristic equation of a second order system. Okay. So even this, one should not have any confusion to tell this, spell it out. If I ask you what is the characteristic equation of a second order system, then even when you are sleeping, you should be able to tell me that s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square is equal to 0. If someone asks you what is the characteristic equation of a closed loop control system in general, then you say that the denominator must be equated to 0, which must be 1 plus g of s into h of s equated to 0. So these are the points to be remembered. Now we have got the characteristic equation. Let us find the roots of the characteristic equation. Okay. Why am I doing this? I am finding the nature of the roots. From the nature of the roots, I can say how the system is behaving. Okay. So I have the characteristic equation. You can compare it with x square plus, you have your standard second order equation, a quadratic equation, right? Right? So s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square, it is like x square plus BC. You have a second order polynomial in the similar way. So the quadratic equation s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square is equal to 0. Now I want to find the roots of this equation. From the basics of algebra, what we have learned, the roots of the equation could be minus 2 zeta omega n. It is like equated to b, right? Minus 2 zeta omega n plus or minus square root of b square. B square is 4 zeta square omega n square minus 4 ac. A is 1, c is omega n square. So by putting those values, I have obtained roots of the characteristic equation could be minus 2 zeta omega n plus or minus square root of 4 zeta square omega n square minus 4 n square by 2. Because it is having the sign plus or minus, I can say with plus there is one root, with minus there is another root. So I can say here, when I'm talking about the roots of the equation, the equation would be having two roots, S1 and S2, namely that S1, S2 could be minus 2 zeta omega n plus or minus square root of 4 zeta square omega n square minus 4n square by 2. Okay. The same thing when I am trying to simplify this, this is minus 2 zeta omega n as it is, plus or minus. I can have this 4 omega n square here, 4 omega n square here as a common. So within the root, it is 4 omega n square. When I take it out, it will be 2 omega n into square root of zeta square minus 1 by 2. So 2 gets cancelled. I have the roots as minus zeta omega n. Okay. The roots as minus zeta omega n plus or minus omega n into square root of zeta square minus 1. So this you have to remember. The roots of a second order system are generally given as minus zeta omega n plus or minus omega n into under root of zeta square minus 1. Okay. I think there is no problem in understanding until here. Is there anything? If someone has any issue, please let me know. But I feel it is the basics of algebra which I'm applying here. So you have the roots of the equation, second order transfer function roots we have obtained. Now the thing is that we know that the system can exist in one of the four modes, right? It can be zeta is equal to 0, right? That is undamped case. Zeta is equal to 1, critically damped case. Zeta between 0 to 1, underdamped case. Zeta greater than 1, overdamped case. It can be in one of the four cases. So what is that we are trying to find out? In each of the case, what is the nature of the roots? How the roots would be, okay, for the second order system. Let me go to the next slide. I think it got stuck. Wait a second. This. Now, what we have to do is we have to find out the roots of the equation for each of the case. Fine. So that is when zeta is equal to 0, what are the roots? And when zeta is equal to 1, what are the roots? What is the nature of the roots that we have to find out? Okay. So let me say the case when zeta is equal to 0. Okay. Yes. Let me say zeta is equal to 0. So what are my roots actually? I said the roots are S1 or 2 roots, right? So the two roots are minus zeta omega n, okay, which is minus zeta omega n plus or minus, okay, what is it? Plus or minus omega n into square root of zeta square minus 1. So now I'm trying to find out what is the nature of the roots with zeta is equal to 0, correct? So when I'm trying to find out S1 to 2 roots could be zeta is 0, 0 into omega n plus or minus omega n into square root of zeta minus 1, correct? So it is nothing but 0 plus or minus omega n into square root of minus 1. Okay, it is plus omega n into square root of minus 1 and it is equal to plus omega n into square root of minus 1. What is the representation for square root of minus 1? Can anyone tell me?
Iota.
I or j, okay? So it is a complex notation. So I am using it as j plus j omega n and this is minus j omega n plus or minus, right? Take it as 2. So the two roots of the equation, two roots of the second order system, when zeta is equal to 0 would be plus or minus j omega n. I say that the roots for this case will be plus or minus j omega n, right? So when they are plus or minus j omega n, I have to say something about the nature, right? So what is the nature? The roots are purely imaginary, isn't it? One root is plus j omega n, other root is minus j omega n. So I can say the characteristic or the nature of the roots is roots are purely imaginary, correct? The roots are purely imaginary, okay? And what about the system? And the system is undamped. System is undamped. So what I did, I tried to find the nature of the roots when zeta is equal to 0. Okay. I had found the roots equation and in the roots equation substituted zeta is equal to 0 and obtained the roots. And from the roots, I could able to say that when zeta is equal to 0, the roots are purely imaginary and the system is undamped. So same is the case with the other condition, right? But for each of the case, we have to find out. Fine. So the next one is that when zeta is equal to 1. So I'm trying to find out the second case when zeta is equal to 1, what would be the roots? Again, the roots of the second order system I know minus zeta omega n plus or minus omega n into square root of zeta square minus 1. This is this. When zeta is equal to 1, it is minus omega n plus or minus omega n into 1 minus 1, which is 0. So I have minus omega n plus 0 and minus omega n minus 0. So what would be the roots now? The roots are equal, correct? Minus omega n minus omega n. So the roots are real and equal, correct? So you should, why I'm telling this is you have to know what are the roots and this is useful for us in the future to know about the stability. Okay. So now that is why I'm giving you the basic fundamentals which are required for us to use them in the future. I said the roots are real and equal when zeta is equal to 1. And as as I told you before, the system is critically damped. System is critically damped. Okay. So what I want you to remember is I want you to remember this part. Okay. And if you can't remember, you should be able to apply. That is as simple as that. So what is big deal in that? You can just directly apply. What is it? You can find out. And the next case is that we have undamped system we have seen, and critically damped system we have seen. Let us see the case 3, okay, when zeta is greater than 1. When zeta is greater than 1, when again I have my two roots S1, 2 could be minus zeta omega n plus or minus omega n into square root of zeta square minus 1. Zeta is greater than 1, so some greater than value is 1. Okay, omega n into, if it is greater than 1, let us say 1.5, let me say minus 1 if I take it. So 1.5 minus 1 is 0.5, square root of 0.5 would be something, some k value, let us say. Okay, I'm not worried about what value is, some value. This is equal to minus omega n into that particular value. Okay. What you can see here is minus omega n plus something minus omega n minus something, isn't it? We are multiplying omega n with some number. So let us say this omega n k. Okay, for the example, omega n into 0.5 in this case. Maybe, so for you to be clear, in this case, omega n into 0.5 is k1, let me say. Okay. So what is that you are going to get? Minus omega n plus k1 is one root, minus omega n plus k2 other root. Obviously, it is multiplied with 0.5, it is multiplied with 0.5. Okay. Whatever, 1.5, whatever it may be. So I'm not worried about. What I would like to say is that this term is same for both the roots, but this term with plus k1 and which is minus k1, correct? Plus or minus, right? So what I am trying to say is you are having the roots which are real, correct? The roots are real, no imaginary quant, but not equal. Why they are not equal? Because I'm subtracting some number to from some number, and I'm adding some number to some other root. So minus omega n into zeta plus k1 minus omega n into zeta minus k1. That's what I was doing. So to sum, I'm adding, and the same amount I'm subtracting. So the roots are real and unequal. And again, because the value itself is saying that the system is overdamped. Okay. However, that I'll show you the waveforms later after this. Okay. The system is overdamped. Finally, we have to go with the next case. We have to go with the next case, okay, which is where zeta is between 0 and 1, some value, maybe 0.5, 0.6, anything you take. So you have your two roots S1, S2 or S1, 2. Again, minus zeta omega n. By now, because writing so 4 times we wrote, no, you should have got it to your mind, thought, this formula, minus zeta omega n plus or minus omega n into square root of zeta square minus 1. So zeta is between 0 to 1, right? It is a smaller value. So some smaller value into omega n, that's okay. Plus or minus omega n into, so there is a smaller value, let me say 0.5 minus 1. So when I am taking a smaller value from a bigger value which is negative, I'm going to get a negative value within the root, correct? So now what is that I am going to get? So I might be getting a negative of minus zeta square. I can say that zeta omega n, because it is between greater than 0 and less than 1. I can say it as something like j omega n, okay, into square root of 1 minus zeta square. Why I'm doing this? This is like, this has been modified like zeta omega n plus or minus omega n, because zeta is between 0 to 1. The total value will be a negative value into zeta, some manipulation. So this is, these are the roots, but I can say that the roots are complex conjugate. I can say that the roots are complex conjugate, and between 0 to 1, the system is underdamped. Okay. This is nothing but all the basic algebra that we have to work, but what I'm interested in this is You apply your algebraic equation, get the solution and look at the roots, and you should only able to say whatever I have said, you should able to say, and you should remember that what is the nature of the roots for each of the case, when they are real, when they are imaginary, when they are complex conjugate, when they are real and unequal. So all the four types of things we have seen. Then there is something called damping frequency, which is given as omega t is omega n into square root of 1 minus zeta square, where omega n is a natural frequency and omega d is a damping frequency. So this is the frequent formula that we are going to use, that you have to remember. Okay. Now, having understood the standard second order system, having understood the roots of the characteristic of equation of a second order system, having understood roots of the second order characteristic equation, and finding the nature of the roots for each of the case, namely undamped, underdamped, critical damped, and overdamped cases. Now let us move on to the next segment of it, that is finding the step response. Okay, so what is the step response of second order system? So here again, I'm not going to derive all the step responses because everything can't be done. This is the basic mathematics you have to see. Okay. So step response of a second order system, to do that, first we know that the second order system is omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. Okay. Its step response, and you have to find out C of t in time domain. What is this? We have to find out. Right? Then C of s is nothing but R of s into omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. So finding the step response is important. You understand for one case, and for all the other cases you are supposed to find out. Okay. So now what I did, C of s is R of s into omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. So when I'm talking about step response, I know that R of t is a unit step, correct? It is equal to 0 for t less than 0, that I know. So when R of t is 1, R of s should be 1 by s. Okay. So therefore, what would be my C of s now? My C of s is R of s is 1 by s, correct? In case of this R of s, it is a step response I'm talking about. Step response. So what is the step response? Is 1 by s here in this case. But it is not at all, because C of t we have to find out, correct? S square plus 2 zeta omega s plus omega n square. Okay. So this we should able to write for the second order system. So C of s is 1 by s into omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square is the standard output for the step input. Okay, for the step input, this is the thing. Now, but we have to find out C of t, correct? So this is C of t, what the response we can find out is, actually time response C of t can be obtained by taking the inverse Laplace transform of this. That is one thing. But to get C of t, which is inverse Laplace transform of C of s, has to be done, but it's not sufficient. For what all the things we should able to find out? We should able to find out C of t for zeta equal to 0, zeta equal to 1, zeta between 0 and 1, and zeta greater than 1. For all the four cases, we should able to find out. Okay, so you should able to find out. So let me just do it for one. Okay, so one case I will do it, and the rest of the things you can always do it. Okay, so let me take it for zeta is equal to 1 second. Okay. So let us see the response of a system for either zeta is equal to 0 or zeta is equal to 1. Okay. Or zeta between 0 to 1 and zeta equal. So for doing all these things, the most important thing what you require is you have to understand how to apply the partial fractions method for finding the inverse Laplace transform of the given system. Okay, so that is most important. The prerequisite for solving all these things is you should be able to know the second. I just missed the pen. So you have to find the inverse Laplace transform. To find that inverse Laplace transform, you should always know how to use the partial fractions. Try to simplify for the partial fractions with zeta is equal to 1 for this system. By that time, I find my pen. So what I have given you is C of S is equal to 1 by S into omega n square by S square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. This is the system. So we have to find out C of t. So I have considered one case. Okay. What is that case I have considered? For zeta equal to 1, I am trying to find out C of t. Okay. When I am putting zeta equal to 1, that is for the case of critically damped case, I am trying to find out. For critically damped case, I am trying to find out what is C of t. That is C of t is a response for the second order system for the step input. Fine. So now zeta is equal to 1. So 1 by into omega n square. Substitute the value of zeta as is equal to 1. Okay. So that is s square. Zeta is 1. So 2 omega ns plus omega n square. When you look at here in the denominator, s square plus 2 omega ns plus omega n square. What does it indicate? Can I write it in another form? Algebraically, what is it?
S plus omega n whole square.
Correct. So it is It is 1 by s into omega n square by s plus omega n whole square. I can write it like this because it is nothing but s square plus omega n square plus 2 omega ns. Okay, I just represented it like this. Now, in order to find out, what I have to do is my C of s, I am trying to write it as a by s partial fractions. Okay, plus b by s plus 1 omega n square is there. So s plus omega n square plus, because it is a double power, I write it as c by s plus omega n. So as I told you, in order to get C of t, you have to have the inverse Laplace transform of the given C of s. To do so, you have to apply the partial fractions. So for applying the partial fractions, there are different conditions like having a double factor in the denominator, having the quadratic factor in the denominator. There are different conditions. So you should able to apply those partial fractions thoroughly. That is only the challenge here. Okay. So this is this. Now I can say that I can find out what is my A. I can find it out as C of S. What is my C of S? C of S is nothing but omega n square by S into S plus omega n square. That you have to remember. So my C of S into C of S with S is equal to 0, which gives me the value of A as 1. Okay, you should be able to substitute it. Then my B is equal to my C of S into S plus omega n whole square at S is equal to minus omega n which gives me the value of minus omega n. Then again I have to find out C, because there is a method of finding out the C, because it is a double pole. C is given as d by ds of s plus omega. So you have to refer to these partial fractions methods of solving this, okay? To C of s at s is equal to minus omega n, which gives me the value as minus 1. So what is my C of s? When I substitute that, it is 1 by s minus omega n by s plus omega n whole square minus 1 by s plus omega n. Then the response is C of t is inverse Laplace transform of C of s. So inverse Laplace transform of 1 by s is 1 minus omega n into t e to the power of minus omega n t, is Laplace transform of s plus omega n whole square, right? Minus e to the power of minus omega n t. So this is the step response of a second order system when zeta is equal to 1. Similarly, you should able to do the response of a system when zeta is equal to 0. Okay. So C of s you have to get, and then you have to find out C of t. So the same is the case with zeta greater than 1. So it is a task given to you to find C of t for the second order system. Okay, it is there in all the textbooks. Only thing is you have to apply your basic mathematics there to understand it. Second order system for step input for zeta is equal to 0, zeta greater than 1, and zeta between 0 to 1. So this you have to look into the textbooks and you have to solve it. And I can tell you that these solutions are done. This has been solved in the notes, whatever I have given. Either you will refer to the textbooks, learn it and do it, or look into the notes and try to understand it. But whatever it may be, you have to know this. Okay. Now coming to the response, let us say I have the second order system and it's given with the step input, okay, maybe of 1 unit of step input. Okay. So now what happens is, if I want to look at the response of a second order system, the second order system response would be varied depending upon the different types of the damping. So whatever may be the damping that has been applied, based on that, the response also would be changing. So what usually would be, so if you apply input and the response would be having some oscillation because the transient, and after the transient, it tries to remain this. So until this time, there are transients, there are fluctuations in the response, because you had given the input as a step, right? For this given step, the system started responding. It has to reach to this value, because for this input, it has to respond, it has to reach to this final value. In the process of reaching it, what's happening? It is just overshooting, it is having peak, and this is your noise you are making in class initially when teacher entered. So the noise slowly reducing, and it becomes a minimum. And then this is the steady state. So the steady state response is lying as a constant. It's trying to reach to the maximum. Almost it's there. So what happens when the transient response is dying? Your steady state is increasing. So the volume of the teacher's voice is slowly increasing, and it is staying. So I can say that generally the output is having the combination of transient plus steady state, and the transient response dies after some time and steady state settles at the final value. But exactly it will not reach to the final value. There will be some tolerance, plus or minus 2% or plus or minus 4%. Okay, it will be just around that value. Yes, some value, maybe above or below, it would be there. And this peak, no, this overshoot is called the peak overshoot, MP. Okay, and in the process of rising to the value of 1, okay, the time taken from the output to reach from 0.1 to 0.9. If let us say applied input is 1 volt, what is the time taken for the output to reach from 0.1 to 0.9, which is called the rise time. Okay, and the time taken for the output to settle within the plus or minus 2% or within the tolerance band. So by the time you apply the input and it is trying to settle the final value, this is the settling time. Okay, and the time taken for the output to reach to the peak value. Okay, this is the peak, right? So the time taken for the output to reach to the peak value is called TP, peak time. Okay, so you have rise time, you have settling time, you have the peak time. Okay, so these are all the important parameters one has to know. Okay, and because of the damping is more, if it is a over damped case, what happens is there will be a lot of damping. There will be a lot of overshoot. Okay, so you can have this thing variations, and it can be. And if it is a critically damped case, there will not be any oscillations directly. It is trying to reach to the final value. Okay, there will not be any overshoots, or there should not be any oscillations on the value. Okay, so these are the typical ways in which the system behaves and the response of the system happens. So as I told, if you get C of t, how can I get these waveform natures? I can get to know about the waveform nature only when I know what is C of t for each of the case, right? If C of t is 1 into 1 minus e to the power of minus 3, something it is coming. That means to say that output is trying to reach to 1, but it will not, and it is trying to do exponentially, it is trying to reach. So looking at these expressions, for some of the things it is having omega and t cos t sin t, something like that, and you can see these oscillations which are happening. So in order to know the nature of the waveform, I advise you to first find the C of t, responses for each of the case, and see the waveform given there. Then I think it is more appropriate for you to understand. For example, when zeta is equal to 1 for the critically damped case, okay, so the response it would be, when whatever we have done just now, is e to the power of minus omega nt into omega nt plus 1. So it would be like 1 minus e to the power of minus omega nt. So it is 0 to 1 as a function of t. It is trying to reach to the maximum value with an exponential thing. Okay. So similarly for the overdamped case and for the underdamped case, you should be able to get the equations. Okay. That is the task. Now coming to the time domain specifications. Okay. Now important thing is to know about the time domain specifications. Why these specifications are required? So in order to say the performance of the system, right? For example, I have to describe about a person. I should know. I have to give the specifications of the person. The person is so much tall. No, the complexion is so and so, and the nature is more talkative. So all those description I have to give. So the way in which we give the description specifications of a human being, or for that matter for any of the object what we are trying to describe, the same way for a system's performance, whether it is reacting fast, whether it is reacting slow, whether it is damping, whether it is not damping, whether its settling time is fast or not, all those things which are figure of merits which are required for us. So for any system we should able to define the time domain specifications. Okay, so let us see what are those time domain specifications. Okay, so before that, let me just draw the response for your sake for all the three cases. Okay, this is the unit step input. As I told you, there is a peak, okay, settling. Okay, so this is one case, right? For example, this is for the underdamped case. And then when zeta is equal to 1, I showed you for zeta is equal to 1, it is it's trying to reach like this, exponential. Okay. Now, for zeta greater than 1, which is nothing but, let me say some other color. Okay. Let's say green. Okay. This is for zeta equal to 1. Sorry, this is zeta equal to 1. This is zeta less than 1. And for zeta greater than 1, I'm also getting something like this. Okay. It's like this. I think for the overdamped case and for the critically damped case, the format or the template of the response is looking like something like an exponential thing, which not having much of the oscillations or overshoots, right? Only for the underdamped case only we have the overshoot. Okay. So now what is that you have to identify here between the critically damped and overdamped is that critically damped is reaching this final value earlier than the overdamped. Overdamped case is taking a longer time, but whereas critically damped is reaching faster. So that is the most important. When zeta is equal to 1, it is reaching fast. When zeta is greater than 1, it is reaching slow. But what is the performance? What is the template? The template is similar. This is also exponential like this. This is also exponential like this. But this exponential for the overdamped case is slower, and for the critically damped case, it is faster. That is the most important thing one has to understand. This is a general waveform. Okay, this is for the underdamped case, and this is for the critically damped case, and this is for the overdamped case. Now moving on to the time domain specifications, as I said. So what we do is I will just define the timings, and then I'll give you some 10 minutes biological break. Afterwards, we'll have the quiz. The quiz is a little lengthy and it has to apply what all you have learned today. Okay. So let me list about the time domain specifications and then stop here. Then afterwards, I'll give you the quiz after the break. So there are the delay time. Okay, what is the delay time? Time taken for the output to reach to 50% of the final value. Supposing that you had given the input as 1. So in order to reach to 0.5, what is the time it has taken? Something is coming like this. So at 50% it has come here. So this is your delay time. Okay. So delay time. I have already discussed about the rise time. Rise time is the time taken for output to reach from 10% to the 90% of the final value, correct? Then peak time, TP, time taken for the output to reach to the peak, MP I have shown you, peak time. Then there is something called maximum overshoot, okay? What is the overshoot? There was an overshoot in particular case, right? So there is an overshoot. So what is this maximum overshoot which is present, if at all present, what is the maximum overshoot that has to be taken? So maximum overshoot or maximum peak overshoot, we can say MP. Then finally, the settling time. It is a common sense, right? See, when I'm talking about settling time, I want the settling time to be the small, isn't it? The output has to settle very fast, correct? If I give some input and suppose if I enter the class and you are making noise, I don't want the noise to continue for a longer time. It has to settle fast. Okay, so settling time is the time taken for the output to settle within the final value. So the more quickly it is responding, that has a smaller settling time. And maximum peak overshoot. So there should not be any peaks, but what is the maximum peak overshoot, if at all? It is there for an underdamped system, we can find out. Peak time, what is the time taken for the first peak to reach? So there may be multiple peaks, as I have shown you. For the first peak, it is TP1. For the second peak, it may be TP2, etc. Then rise time is the time taken for the output to reach from 10% to 90%. Again, the rise time should be smaller. It should reach fast, right? It has to reach to the final value very fast. Depending upon the system what you are designing, whether you want a faster rise time or a smaller rise time, you have to decide. That is left to the designer as well. Delay time, time taken for the output to reach to 50% of the final value. So these are the things, okay. Then also, in order to find out these things for a given second order system, we should know what are the formula that we have to use, isn't it? So there are formulas which we have to use. That means you have to remember, because there could be problems based on this and they'll ask you to do it. So there is something called rise time. So rise time is given as, these formulas you have to remember. Minus tan inverse square root of 1 minus zeta square by zeta, okay, whole divided by omega n into square root of 1 minus zeta square. These values you have to remember, okay? These formulas you have to remember. Theta is tan inverse square root of 1 minus zeta square by zeta. Also, omega d is omega n into square root of 1 minus zeta squared. It can be represented with a right angle triangle having 1 minus zeta square here, zeta here, 1 here. So this has to be remembered for the rise time. Similarly, I'll give you the formula for the peak time as well. Peak time, peak overshoot. Each of them we have to know, right? Make a note of it. Let me just quickly go to TP. TP is pi by omega d, where omega d is given as omega n into square root of 1 minus zeta square. I'm not deriving them. You can derive them. Okay. That is the task for you, how to derive these values by substituting it. Minus theta by omega d, where theta is tan inverse square root of 1 minus zeta square by zeta, which is already given. So TR, TP, then TS, settling time. Okay. Settling time can be 3 into T, where T is 1 by zeta omega n. Okay. Or 4T. Okay. Why it is 3T? It is 3T for 5% error or tolerance, and this is 4T for 2% error. So it is 4 by, based on what was asked in the problem, we should be able to do here. And finally, peak overshoot, percentage of peak overshoot is given as, this is also important, e to the power of minus pi zeta by square root of, this is entire to the power of e, okay, minus 1 minus e to the power of zeta square into 100. Peak overshoot is this much. Percentage of peak overshoot is into 100. So these are the important things you have to know. Now I think you can go for a biological break. According to my clock, it is 12:15. Okay. So at 12:30, you can come back. We can have a quiz and then we can solve one problem on this time domain specifications. Fine. You can go for a biological break.